we're going to continue, and we're going to factor trinomials. This is any trinomial, so not just the special case that we talked about on Friday. This is the kind of factoring that I think most people remember. When most people are factoring, this is typically what your brain might go to, right? So any trinomial, remember a trinomial has 3 terms. All right, this is factoring trinomials with a equal to 1. When I say a equal to 1, right, we talk about trinomials in this particular form. Ax squared plus bx plus c. So this is standard form for our trinomials. All right, when a equals 1, it's just going to look like x squared plus bx plus c. All right, so in these 2 expressions that I just wrote, what do you notice about the highest exponent? It's 2, right? So this is specific to, we call these quadratic expressions. All right, so that's all we're going to focus on for this particular lesson. So there's a lot of words here. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you with this example. All right, so if you have this example, x squared minus 7x plus 12. What you're looking for is you're looking for factors of the last. So you're looking for factors of 12 that add up to the middle term, negative 7. Okay, good, right? So we can do 3 and 4. Just keep in mind, if we want a negative in the middle, what should both of these numbers be? Negative, right? And you also know that that's correct because the only way to get a positive from multiplying is if it's a positive times a positive or a negative times a negative, right? So that means since the middle term is negative, both of these numbers have to be negative. So negative 3 and negative 4 are correct, right? What you do with those numbers now is you can just stick them in parentheses with an x. Since our first term is x squared, there's no number in front of the x squared. We can very simply just treat this as x minus 3 and x minus 4. There's nothing more we need to do to that. All right, we're going to do a couple more examples like that, and in a few minutes, you guys are going to get super good at this. Okay, let's try this one. X squared plus 5x plus 6. All right, the first term is just an x squared. There's nothing in front of it. So what am I going to look for? Factors of what number?
6.
Okay, so we're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to 6 that add up to the middle term 5. What 2 numbers can we think about?
3 and 2.
Good, right? 2 and 3 or 3 and 2. The order does not matter. So 2 and 3. They're both positive because they add up to a positive 5 and they multiply to a positive 6. All right? So all we have to do now, stick them in parentheses with an x. X plus 2 and x plus 3. Any issues there? Awesome. We can do the exact same thing with number 2. All right, we're looking factors of the last, which in this case is negative 6, that add up to what number? Negative 1, right? We treat that as a negative 1. The only difference here is that how can we get a negative from multiplying? I can do a negative times what? Negative times a positive. So you're looking for 1 negative, 1 positive. All right, so what 2 numbers do we think? Good, right? Negative 3 and positive 2 multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 1. So this is going to be x minus 3 and x plus 2. No. The order doesn't matter as long as the signs are with the correct number. All right, what about number 3? We're looking for 2 numbers that multiply to what? To 8 and add to what? To negative 6. So I'm looking for 2 of what kind of numbers? 2 negative numbers. Good, right? What are we thinking? Negative 2, negative 4, they do add up to negative 6. So then this is going to be x minus 2 and x minus 4. What can you do if you're unsure? Like, let's say you got that answer and you're not sure if it's the correct one. How can you check it? Good, right? FOIL it, multiply it. If you multiply it, you should get x squared minus 4x minus 2x plus 8, and then you should get x squared minus 6x plus 8. And then you see that it does match the original one. So that's exactly what we wanted. Questions on this page? Okay, good, right? So most people can do, with the exception of 5, all of these, right? Factors of negative 24 that add to negative 5 should be negative 8 and positive 3, right? Be careful with your signs. They should add up to the middle number, including the signs. So we get x minus 8, x plus 3. Number 6, we can do the same thing. Factors of negative 18 that add to negative 3 should get you negative 6, positive 3. So x minus 6, x plus 3. Number 7, you're looking for two positive numbers, since this is a positive and a positive. So this is going to be 2 and 1. All right, so it's going to be x plus 2, x plus 1. All right. Number 5, you guys are looking at this one, and you're thinking factors of 1 that add to 1. Well, 1 you can only do 1 times 1. What does that get you when you add them? 2. You can't factor this one. Not factorable. Not every trinomial is factorable. That's fine. Doesn't mean something's wrong. Just means it's not factorable. Okay, now we're going to do trinomials where a does not equal 1. What do I mean by that? We're going to do ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not 1. So it's not just going to look like an x squared. It's going to have a number in front. The first option is trial and error. I used to hate trial and error. I used to say, why would you waste time guessing and checking? Sometimes you guys are going to see the numbers are going to get really big. There's probably another method that you guys know or remember. If not, that's fine. I'm going to go over that next. There's probably another method that you guys know that you multiply the first times the last, and then you try to find factors of that. Sometimes that's going to get you a really big number, so it might be a little bit easier to guess and check. Let me show you how I guess and check, and I'm going to hope that we can implement this method from time to time, right? You don't have to do it all the time, just because sometimes there are other methods that are easier, which I'll talk about next, but I want to at least highlight this just because sometimes it is a little bit easier than doing the first times the last. So let's look at this first term, 2x squared. Let's ignore the x squared for now and just look at the 2. What two numbers multiply to 2? 2 times 1. So I know for sure it's going to have a 2 and a 1. There's no other option for my parentheses. One of them is going to have a 2, and one of them is going to have a 1. You guys agree? What about negative 15? This is where you have some options. Keep in mind, this is negative and this is positive, so I'm looking for what kind of numbers? A negative times a what? Negative times a positive, right? Remember, negative times positive is what gets you a negative, and that's going to add to that positive. All right? So help me out. What are some numbers that multiply to negative 15? Good, negative 5 and 3. So I'm going to write down negative 5 and a positive 3. And let's go across. 2 times negative 5, what does that get you? Good, negative 10. I'm going to write that in the middle. What does 1 times 3 get you? 3. When you add negative 10 and 3, what does that get you? Does that match this in the middle? No, so that means you're going to have to try again. So, okay, good. Let's try that, right? If it didn't work, that doesn't mean the numbers don't work. It just means the order might not have worked. So let's try 2 and 1 again. And let's try a positive 3, negative 5 this time. Positive 3, negative 5. So 2 times positive 3, what does that get you? 6. What does 1 times negative 5 get you? Negative 5. When you add those together, what do you get? Does that match the term in the middle? Yes, it does. When that happens, I'm going to go diagonal. 2 and negative 5. And 1 and positive 3 are going to go together. The 2 and the 1 are the ones that are going to have the x. This is going to be 2x minus 5. And the 1 is going to have the x. This is going to be a 1x plus 3, or just x plus 3. And so this is our factored expression. Some of you are probably like, well, I hated that. That did not make any sense. That's fine. I'll try another option, right? The other option is you can multiply the first and the last terms. This is probably what you guys are most familiar with. Let's try doing it this way. So I'm going to show you. 2 times negative 15, I'm going to take the first times the last. What does 2 times negative 15 get you? 30. Negative 30. And then let's find factors of negative 30 that add to the middle, so 1. Can we think of anything?
6 and 5.
Good. 6 and negative 5. Good. What you can do with those numbers now, this is where a lot of people mess up, is you can split up this middle term and factor it by grouping. 1x is the same as 6x minus 5x. So let's keep it like that. And then let's bring everything else down. The negative 15 and the 2x squared. So this is going to be 2x squared plus 6x minus 5x minus 15. This is an equivalent expression. And now, how many terms do you see? 4, right? And we just learned, maybe like 20 minutes ago, how can you factor something with 4 terms? Grouping. So I'm going to group the first 2, group the second 2. What's our GCF of that first group? 2x. And then you should be left with x plus 3. What's our GCF of the next group? Good, negative 5. And you should be left with x plus 3. And then notice that when you do this, you get the exact same thing as we did in the previous page. All right, this is another valid way to factor. We get 2x minus 5 times x plus 3. A lot of people do this and this only. I will say that's fine. If you like one method, you can stick to it. But when you multiply the first and the last, let's say the first term is 15 and the last one is, 46 or something like that. There's less numbers that multiply to 46 than there are whatever 15 times 46 is, right? So good luck with that. All right. Let's try some of these. I'm going to do this one the way that most of you will do it, and that's by the grouping method. So let's do the 2 times 3. What does that get you? 6. Do we have factors of 6, positive 6, that add to negative 5? Good. Negative 3, negative 2. So we can break this up, and this is going to be a negative 3x minus 2x. And we can bring everything else down. 2x squared plus 3. And now let's group the first 2 and the second 2. All right, what's our GCF of the first group? Just an x. There's nothing more that we can do there, so we're left with a 2x minus 3. What's our GCF of the next group? We can try a negative 1, right? If you guys notice, already this looks pretty close to this right here. The only thing different is what? The signs, right? So what we can do is we can take out a negative 1. And that's going to get us a 2x minus 3. And then we can pull that out as the GCF. This is going to be 2x minus 3. And then x minus 1. So that's by grouping. All right, so now let's look at number 10. Those of you that like to do the first times the last, what's 8 times 18? You get 144. So you're looking here for 144, factors of 144 that add to positive 51. Do we know that? Probably not off the top of your head. Most people, and the way that I've taught this in the past, is you can keep finding factors, and eventually you're going to find one that adds up to 51. But, on a time crunch, you could multiply numbers wrong. You don't want to make those little mistakes. So I'm going to show you guys that I like to guess and check for this one. All right. What are factors of 8? Okay, we can try 4 and 2. 2 and 4. What are factors of 18? 6 and 3. Sure, let's do it. 2 times 6 is what? 12. 4 times 3 is what? 12. Does that add up to 51? No, so we know that that's not going to work. Before giving up on these numbers, you can also reverse the order. So 2 and 4, and let's try 3 and 6. 2 times 3 is what? 6. 4 times 6 is what? Does that add up to 51? No. Now we can give up on these numbers. What are other numbers that multiply to 8? 8 and 1. Okay, yeah, we can try 8 and 1. And let's stick with the same numbers. Let's try 6 and 3. So I'm going to do 6 and 3. 8 times 6 is what? 48. 1 times 3 is what? 3. Add these together, what does that get you? 51. That does work. Now that we have these numbers, you're going to go diagonally. 8 and 3 go together. 1 and 6 go together. All right, so it's going to be 8x plus 3. And then it's going to be 1x plus 6, which is just x plus 6. I know it was tedious, and depending on the numbers that you pick, you might be guessing and checking for a long time. But do you guys agree that that's a little bit easier than finding a whole bunch of numbers that multiply to 144 and add to 51? The actual answer, if you would have done it, would have been 3 and 48. I mean, do you think you would have gotten that? Probably not. I mean, maybe eventually you would have. But this is why I like to guess and check, right? I might even give you on a test one that is going to give you pretty big numbers, so that way you get a little bit more comfortable with guessing. If you don't like the way that I'm writing it, another way that you can write it is in factors, right? So maybe you want to try, right, 8x times x, and then this is where you try your factors. Maybe you tried plus 6 and plus 3, and then you can FOIL it, right, if you want to FOIL it, and then check it like that. Most people prefer to do it that way. That's perfectly fine, but that's going to show, you're going to show a lot of work for that, all right? So I like to condense it as much as I can. We're going to practice way more with this tomorrow and the day after, right? So we finished all the content for your test on Thursday.